feedback. Today's session will be presented by my colleague John Shave, who's Technical Director for Civil Bridge and Ground at WSP. My colleague Maria Pia Angelino from WSP is also on the line as well. Maria Pia will be monitoring any comments in the chat, so feel free to put any comments in the chat. We'll try and answer any that we can, but eventually the intention is to update a frequently asked questions document we've got on standards governance that we'll share as soon as we can with answers to any questions. So if you could put yourself on mute if you haven't done so already, that would be great. And I'll hand over to John.
Great, thanks very much, Becky. All right, let's see if I can share my screen. And let's see if this works. Okay, can you see the slide?
We can, thanks, John.
Yes, fabulous. Okay, so yeah, welcome to the session, everybody. As Becky said, I'm John Shea from WSP, and I've been working with National Highways for many years now on their kind of standards development journey and the DMRB updates in MCHW, and this document maintenance process is part of that whole suite of work, I guess. What we're doing today is we're giving an awareness session for the TSC chairs and secretaries, group managers and group program coordinators. The objectives are to just give that level of awareness for what is going to be coming in terms of the document maintenance process. We're going to explain why it's happening, why we're doing this, what the different components are, some benefits, some key dates for you, and some available support. It'll give you a bit of visibility of what's happening in terms of the tools. And also, if you want to, you can get involved with trialing some of these tools out, which might be helpful before they become officially rolled out. And we have some consistent communication so that in the further training that's going to be happening in January and dissemination, you have that awareness so that you can feed that back through your teams. So the technical authors who will be having those that training in January will know what's coming. Okay. So if you do have any questions or comments, then please do put them in the chat box. I actually won't be able to see it because of the way my screens are set up, but I think Mario Pia will be monitoring that, and then if there's any that are left at the end, we can pick those up then. So this whole kind of document maintenance process, just to kind of give a bit of context for how it sits within the standards governance process, which you'll all be aware of and we're using in terms of the different categories of changes and the different processes that we need to go through with the governance. The last stage in this diagram is the document maintenance. So it sits within that process which is already in place. What we're going to do is just explain why we're introducing a process for this. I think the main reason is kind of summarized in this graph, which I think pretty much everyone will have seen many times before, just kind of summarizing how before we went through this update to the DMRB, the average age of these documents was getting very high, and there was a need to bring them up to date, and that has been done. So between 2015 and 2020, the average age dropped down from about 15 years down to almost nothing. What we need to do now is to have a process to maintain them up to date without it getting back into that position that we were in before. And that clearly was an obligation, and is something that we need to do. At the moment, we have different numbers of documents in the different disciplines. We can see that there are some disciplines that have many more than others, and so the whole kind of workload and planning and prioritization of these document maintenance actions is going to be need to be managed in terms of those sort of issues in terms of managing workload. So this is another reason why we need to have process in place which helps manage that obligation and gives the information needed to see where the spikes are, where the issues are, and how to manage them effectively. So when we were doing the training sessions on the standards of governance process, there were comments made on opportunities for improvements to the way in which documents are kept up to date. So we've got more visibility of the documents to be updated, as well as prioritization, management of feedback. So I collected all of those comments on the status of where things are at the moment, and we've been looking at areas for improvement, and that's in parallel with another exercise looking at lean and areas for improvement. So we've identified some gaps, and as you can see on this slide, we've got gaps related to document reviews, the fact that we have previously had no structured process in place to undertake and record document reviews, even though this was something which was needed and many people are doing, but it wasn't kind of formally recorded in a consistent way. And we found that experience has shown that if this is not done consistently and regularly, then the documents can become out of date, and then that can lead to disruption, because you then have entire documents needing to be rewritten instead of just keeping the documents up to date using incremental changes, which is what where we're moving towards. In addition, we'll have the evidence that documents are up to date through this process. Feedback management, there was no formal process to manage feedback on documents apart from the email system that we have. It was very difficult to actually see, go back and see whether feedback had been addressed on particular documents. So there's a risk there, clearly, that if errors are not addressed, then there could be some serious consequences. And there was no kind of structured document maintenance process that linked together the document reviews, the feedback management, and the management of routine changes to the documents. So this is what we're trying to do today. And the results of this work have been to have a list of recommendations which have been accepted, and that's led to the enhancements which we're presenting today. So the different components of this process for document maintenance are: we have document review management, feedback management, and routine change management. I'm going to explain briefly what those are. Document reviews are essentially checklists to say, is the document up to date, or do some changes need to be made to the document? It's not going through and making those changes, but it's simply reading the document and filling out a form. And the outcome of that form is that either no changes are needed to the document, or changes are needed to the document effectively. And you can see that at the bottom here. So we now have this process, this form available. And if people want to trial using that form, then you can do that from now, although it'll be formally rolled out in January. So when do we need to do document reviews? The idea is this is a regular cycle of review, and we're working on a 5-year cycle, which means there's a maximum of 5 years between successive document reviews. Now, clearly for the DMRB documents, in fact, all the documents, they haven't had a document review using this new process yet. So for the first document review, we're looking for that to be done a maximum of 4 years after the first publication of the documents. The reason that it's 4 years after the first publication of the document is to just give a bit of time, because it might be that following a document review, you might need to do some changes, and that just gives a bit of time for those changes to be implemented while still meeting that 5-year cycle. But there's no need to wait until the last possible time to do a document review. They can be done anytime before the deadline. And you might want to do that in order to smooth the peaks and troughs of a particular suite of documents or discipline. And if you're doing a major revision to a document, then that would include a document review as well. There's no point doing a major revision to the document without checking that everything that needs to be done to it to bring it up to date is addressed within that major revision. So that's document reviews. Then if we move on to feedback management. So what we have is we're now introducing a single feedback channel, but that will address a variety of different types of possible feedback on documents. Because we've identified these kind of 4 general areas of possible types of feedback. There might be general queries related to publication or about the suites of standards that are available on the website. Might be some general ideas. 1 and 2 there, general queries, general ideas. Those are not specific to a certain document or clause. But 3 and 4 are related to the actual content of the document. So 3 could be a request for background information about a clause, for instance. 4 could be a challenge to a specific document or a specific clause in a document. So we have a single channel that captures these different types of feedback, and depending on which type of feedback you're giving, then it'll give you different information will be needed through the form. So we have this form which is active, and it will be accessible through the website. It's not yet linked on the website, but it will be accessible through the website. And when you click on the form, you'll see you've got these different options, and depending on which one you select, it will then take you through the process. And in fact, let's see if I can show you the actual form. See if this works. Here we are. So for instance, if I wanted to give a specific challenge to a clause, take you through, say, particular, I'll ask you which document it's about. You see how quick this is. You have to type in clause. Might be that there's other information here. And you can see the sort of information here. And that will then get logged. It'll go to the relevant person. TAG will be able to track whether that feedback's been addressed. So you can see this is in terms of the nature of the information that's been recorded here and the way that this can be managed, this is quite a step forward. Okay, let's now see if I can go back. Okay. In terms of the process, that'll be available via the website. It'll then be tracked with a JIRA item, and this sort of process of managing these items is, I guess, similar in concept to the way that feedback's managed at the moment, but it's just more consistently recorded and documented and tracked. And then what will be clear from the outcome of that feedback review process is whether or not there needs to be a change to the document, and then that'll link in with the standards governance process if that is the case. Okay. Now I'll say in a minute how that links in with the technical standards committee. The third part of the process is the routine changes. Mentioned a few times that it might be that as a result of document review or as a result of feedback management, there needs to be a change to the document, or from other sources. And this process is already in place. We have these different categories of change, and we have the governance process for dealing with these different types of changes. If we've got changes arising from a document review, then this needs to be actioned straight away, basically, or as soon as possible, rather than deferred. If you've done a document review, the whole purpose of doing the document review is to record that the document is up to date. If it's not up to date, then it needs to be brought up to date. So that's why if the change is needed as a result of a document review, then that should be actioned. And then we can confirm that it's up to date once that change has been goes through governance and it's published. If we've got changes arising from feedback, then it might be that we've got a change that needs to be implemented straight away or as soon as possible, or it might be that we've got change that actually doesn't need to be done straight away and could be deferred until we've got other changes that can be put through at the same time. It might be that judgment over whether or not the change needs to be done now, or if it is a non-urgent change that can be deferred, is included in this governance process. And as a result of that, we then go through the process and it will be published eventually as a new version. Clearly, the TSC is responsible for the different documents within its remit. There's no changes in terms of this document maintenance process to the established responsibilities. We still have TSCs that will be planning and delivering their meetings and activities. But what we'll have is a better, kind of more consistent process to provide information that will enable you to monitor the status of the documents in a better way, in terms of having that information in a more structured and useful way. We'll have tools that will help you to do that, and to identify where you've got actions that need to be taken, so that you can engage with the technical authors and check that those actions are being taken at the right time. There might also be decisions relating to document maintenance, and where changes are needed, then those changes need to be managed through the standards governance process. And it could well be that those changes involve innovation, potential innovations, and so there's also a link there with the innovation team to make sure that those are captured. So what we've got here is a performance report that we've done, which summarizes the situation. You can see we've got a graph which shows the document reviews. We have got a bit on the top, that's on the left, and then on the right we've got the status of changes that are in progress at the moment. In the bottom right, you've got the graph which we saw at the start, which gives not just the number of documents but also the age of the documents, and by age what we mean is the time since it was confirmed up to date. So with this new process, once we go through a document review, it will be confirmed up to date, and it means that that age will hopefully stay, the age being the blue lines here, which dropped right down here, hopefully stay down in this sort of region around 2.5 years, ideally, if the document reviews are on a 5-year cycle. This might develop a little bit. We've had some feedback on this, and it might be slightly tweaked or simplified, but you can see this is the sort of report that can be produced, and this is real data, which is why you can see, you know, we haven't had any document reviews yet, so this bottom left is looking a bit empty at the moment, and you can also see from here the deadlines for the document reviews. A lot of them are going to be in this Q4 financial year 23-24, because that's 4 years after when a lot of them were published in that quarter in 2020. So hopefully that makes some sense and it gives that visibility. The other thing that we can do with this is give it on a division basis, so that you can see the data for a particular division. So yeah, hopefully that's going to be useful in terms of managing the maintenance actions. So with this process, you'll have better visibility of which documents are being well maintained, will be the ability to track when documents were last reviewed, documentation of decisions around changes to documents and their timing, increased engagement from users in challenging standards and driving innovation, and management of risks that are identified through the feedback process, and ability to manage resource demand for maintaining documents. So in terms of key dates, we're having this awareness session today, 23rd November, and then between now and January, there'll be a trial period where if you want to use the document review template, then that will be available for use. It'll be rolled out in January, when we'll also have training available for the document authors as well, and the technical authors of the documents, who will be doing the majority of the actions relating to the document reviews, etc. So the rollout includes the update of the MDD rules that cover this, the technical training as well, and the training on the use of Jira, leaflet for the administration staff, and the website updated with the link to the form as we've seen. So the MDD will be updated. That will give the template for document reviews. We've got the different components of the TSES, Jira, CARS, Index Manager, and website will be updated to support the tools that we've presented today. There will be training material made available. So we'll have some videos. We've got tag staff available to answer any queries on this, and drop-in sessions as well. The TSC chair can inform the TSCs about the prospective changes to documents in a timely manner, and we've got a program of updates that will be shared with the DAs. And that includes which DMIB documents have the national application annexes as well. So in terms of just wrapping up, and hopefully we've kept more or less to time. Yeah, actually ahead of time. So the document maintenance process has been reviewed. We've made some enhancements which will help the technical authors to keep the documents up to date. Those enhancements include the document reviews, the feedback management from the website and Jira functionality, integrated approach for managing routine changes, and the updates to Jira to support all of these enhancements together. The TSC chairs, supported by the secretaries, will oversee the status, engagement, decision, and governance related to document maintenance, working with the technical authors for the respective documents. Technical authors will receive those training in January. Okay, so hopefully that brings us to the end. Hopefully we've fulfilled the objectives, I hope, that we set out at the start. I expect there will be some comments on this and some questions. Before we move on, just the final slide there just gives the support that we've discussed already in terms of familiarising yourself with this new process, sharing the key points presented today with the technical authors in your discipline, letting them know that the training will be provided, and opportunities for trialling the different templates available. Okay, and anything further, please do contact Kurt or Becky.
Thank you very much, John. I was responding to the questions in the chat box. I think it's probably good to respond to a question from Quentin, which I'm not sure whether you covered, probably yes. He's asking whether he can actually start reviewing some of the documents now in order to spread the load rather than waiting the end of the 4-year period. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's actually that could be a good kind of strategy for managing these peaks in workload. And if there are documents that if there are documents where there are some changes, you know that there are some changes that need to be made, then it could be, it could be a decision to do a document review whilst you're looking at the document, and then that means it's done and it doesn't need to be done for another 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions? I can see a question from Dean, which I was about answering. It's on the devolved administration's involvement. So on the 1st of November, we delivered a session to the heads of standards from the devolved administrations. And what we communicated to them is that this new process is happening in national highways, and they will be communicating internally to their own technical authors this process. We did share the presentation with them, but in January, when the new process will be rolled out, they will also receive a leaflet for their own staff. So we will share this training also to them. I can see somebody's got the hand up. Anthony Atkins, over to you.
Hi, Maria. Yeah, I was starting to write this, so thanks for coming in. Apologies if I missed this, but I thought that in John's slides at the beginning, it mentioned something about a tool to help process and record and document how the feedback has been dealt with, i.e. if the feedback has been assessed as being required and also urgent, that would lead to making an immediate change to a document, or it could be assessed as we could or should do it, but not urgent, and therefore parked and recorded and will be incorporated into a future planned update, or it's being considered and it's not something that we want to take forward and therefore closed off. Did I just think that was something there? Or we've got a similar thing that we've created in our team already for managing feedback and change requests, and we, as those come in, we categorize them in terms of must, should, could, and also their importance and therefore urgency on whether we need to implement them ASAP or whether they can be held back, I should say, and wrapped up into a future update. But we're kind of doing that through, as I said, an Excel document that Andy and the team has created and managed. But if there is something that's being developed and made available for all that will enable us to do that in either a more efficient or a consistent way, then that would be great.
Yeah, do you want me to answer that? So just to say, we'll tell you more in January, but we'll be using Jira just to capture the results of the feedback form. It will automatically populate the high-level epic and change issue for that document, just so it's all there ready for you to categorise what you want to do with it. But more to come in January. We'll explain in more detail and have some recordings of how it all works.
If that is something that still is maybe in development or being thought about, can we share with you what we currently do? We've got some good learning from it, so there might be some good things for you to take away.
Absolutely, Anthony. Yeah, I'm taking a note of that because it's something that is currently in progress. Is meant to be ready in January, but having some feedback from you also on the interim work we've done, that would be great. And again, I want to emphasize what John said in terms of taking the chance of this awareness session to think about whether you would like to trial the document review template, whether you want to provide feedback on how to collect and manage feedback. It's something that we appreciate now before the rollout, which will happen in January.
Oh, great. Well, yeah, if you happy to have that conversation. As I said, Andy Brellisford has set this up in our team and manages all of that. So he's one to talk with it on it as well.
Sure. Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thanks, Simon, for your comment.
I think, shall we take away the action now just to populate an FAQ with anything else that's been missed? If if anybody has any comments thereafter, feel free to send them on to me. Just conscious of time because I'm guessing people have got other meetings to go to now. But I will send on a copy of this recording to everybody who attended and those who couldn't. We'll also get a copy of the slides from John as well, if that's okay, John.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you very much, everyone, for attending this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Thanks, John and Maria-Pierre.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
all.
all. Cheers. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.